Let me start with a sentence you have probably said to yourself at some point in the last year. I have done everything right. Why isn't this working? You have. You found the good endocrinologist. You switched to the clean diet, no gluten, then no dairy, then no sugar. You started walking, you downloaded the sleep app, you are on the medication, and you take it without fail. You got the second opinion, you tried Ayurveda, you tried the functional medicine, you tried the supplements that someone in a WhatsApp group said changed everything for them. And yet, every morning you wake up and the body is still not quite right. Not dramatically wrong, not hospitalization wrong, just not right. The fog that coffee does not clear, the fatigue that exists somewhere beneath tiredness, a layer deeper than rest can reach, the hair that keeps falling, the weight that does not respond, the mood that is flat in a way you cannot explain to anyone because everything is technically fine. And your doctor says your reports are controlled. And you go home, you sit with that sentence, and somewhere very quietly, a part of you thinks, controlled is not the same as well. You're right. There are other sentences too, the ones that live in the privacy of your mind, that you have not said to anyone. I feel like a stranger in my own body. I used to be energetic. I don't know what happened to that person. I'm managing, not healing. And I don't know if managing is going to be the rest of my life. Or maybe this one. I'm scared. This is just life now. And then underneath all of that, underneath the exhaustion and the quiet resignation, there is something else. A small, stubborn part that has not given up. A part that is still asking, still looking, still willing to listen to one more thing if that thing finally makes sense. That part is why you are here. And it is the most important part of you. There is a layer of this illness that your doctor does not have time to address. Not because your doctor does not care, they do, but because the appointment is just 4 minutes. Because the lab report is what the system is built to read. Because the question nobody is asking, nobody in the medical system and almost no one in the wellness world is the one that actually leads somewhere. The question is this: what has this body been living through for the years before and during this diagnosis that nobody has asked about? That question, that layer, that conversation. That is what this podcast is. My name is Abhinav Sharma. I am a psychosomatic practitioner. I work with the emotional root of thyroid, autoimmune, and metabolic disease using the science of psychoneuroimmunology, the depth psychology of shadow work, and the precision of Bach Flower Remedies. I've been doing this work for 3 years now. The people who come to me have almost without exception already done everything else. They're not beginners. They're not people who have not tried. They are the people who tried everything, got some of it right, and still feel like something has not been reached. The thing that has not been reached is the emotional root. And that is what I reach. This podcast is built for the person I just described. If that is you, you are in the right place. Let us begin. Before we go into the work, a note on who I am and what I am not. I am a psychosomatic practitioner. I am not a physician, not an endocrinologist, nor a rheumatologist, nor a psychiatrist. Nothing in this podcast is medical advice. Nothing here replaces your treating doctor, your medication, or your clinical treatment plan. Please stay on your plan. What I am is someone who has spent years studying the body of research that sits at the intersection of emotional life and physical illness. Reading the scientists, reading the clinicians, sitting with patients, watching what happens when the emotional layer is finally addressed. I'm going to translate that research into plain language, and I am going to share what I observe in my own practice. You might hear me say researchers believe and the evidence suggests, and in my observation. Those distinctions are deliberate. I'm the practitioner translator, not the researcher. I will be precise about that distinction throughout. What I'll not do is make claims I cannot stand behind or simplify the science in a way that misstates it. That honesty is the whole posture of this podcast, and you deserve it. I want to tell you about the people whose thinking this work stands on. Not to name drop, but because understanding where this comes from helps you understand why it is not the same as anything you have probably encountered. The first is Gabor Mate, a Canadian physician who has spent 40 years documenting what happens to the body when a person cannot say no. His book, When the Body Says No, is the most precise account I know of the relationship between emotional suppression and chronic illness. His essential argument: the body says no when we have been conditioned not to. In the form of disease, in the form of immune system turning itself, and in the form of the thyroid refusing to regulate. Gabor Mate diagnosed the field. He does not offer a path through. And that is the gap. The second is Bessel van der Kolk, a Dutch-American psychiatrist whose research established something that should be obvious but is not. That the body is not a passive vehicle for the mind. It's an active participant. And what the mind cannot process, the body stores. What the body stores, it expresses. In illness, in posture, in the particular places it holds tensions for decades. Van der Kolk gave us language for what practitioners have been observing for a century. The body keeps the score. The third is Candace Pert, a neuropharmacologist who established in the 1970s that emotions are biological events, not just psychological ones. Your gut has more serotonin receptors than your brain. Your immune cells respond to the same neuropeptides as your neurons. Emotion is systemic. It is in every cell. That is not a metaphor. It is biochemistry. And the fourth, slightly outside this scientific lineage but essential to this practice, is Dr. Edward Bach, a British physician who in the 1930s developed a system of 38 flower-based preparations, each mapped to a specific emotional state, not a symptom, an emotional state. Bach Flower Remedies are the precision tool at the center of this method, the bridge between emotional insight and biological shift. These four build the territory. What I do is I work in it, specifically, practically for the person living with thyroid disease, autoimmunity, and metabolic illness in a cultural and emotional landscape, none of them fully mapped. I need to spend some time on the word psychosomatic because it has been so thoroughly weaponized against the people it was designed to help that I sometimes hesitate before using it, but use it anyway because the alternative is to let the weapon stand. Here's what happened to the word. Psyche means mind and soma means body. A word, psychosomatic, that simply describes the unified system of a human being. Mind and body as one integrated thing and not two separate departments. But somewhere in the last 50 years, it became a dismissal. Doctors used it to mean we cannot find a physical cause, therefore you are imagining it. Patients started hearing it as you're not real, you're dramatic, go home and think positive thoughts. I want to be very direct about this. If you have been told explicitly or implicitly that your symptoms are psychosomatic in that sense, you are being dismissed, not diagnosed. The word was being used against you in a way that inverts its actual meaning. What psychosomatic medicine actually says is this: your symptoms are real. The inflammation is real, the autoimmune activity is real, the thyroid dysfunction is real too. So is the metabolic disruption. What the field adds is these real biological events have upstream causes that the lab report cannot measure. And those upstream causes include the emotional life of the people or the person in the body centrally. The mechanism is not magic. It's the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It is cortisol and its effect on immune function, thyroid regulation, and insulin sensitivity when it runs chronically without reset because the emotional experience driving it are never fully discharged. We'll go deep into that science in a future episode. For now, know this. Psychosomatic medicine is not soft, it is not alternative. It's the field that explains what happens in the body when the emotional system is given no other outlet. The second misuse of the word is from the opposite direction, the wellness industry, that took a real phenomenon and drained it of its mechanism. Your vibration creates your disease. You manifested this. The universe is giving you a lesson. No. The emotional life produces measurable, specific biological disruptions via real mechanisms. And that is very different from you having attracted your illness with your thoughts. One is science, the other is a story that adds shame to suffering. I work in the science. The word is worth reclaiming. And I'm going to spend this podcast doing exactly that. Let me tell you what the SomaShadow method is in practice. It works in 3 layers, each one doing something the other cannot. The first layer is the chronic emotional pattern. Think of this as the background music of your inner life, the emotional state that has been running so long you no longer hear it as emotional. You experience it as just how you are, just your personality, just life. For most of the people I work with, that background music sounds something like this. I hold everything together. I'm the strong one, the person everyone comes to. But nobody asks how I am. I feel guilty when I rest. The anger just goes nowhere. I swallow it. If you heard yourself in one of those sentences, that is the chronic emotional pattern. It is a specific biological downstream, a nervous system running that pattern for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years cannot distinguish between that low-grade chronic load and actual danger. It keeps the stress response running. Cortisol keeps being produced, and cortisol, when it runs without reset, dysregulates the immune system, the thyroid, the insulin response, the gut lining. The body is not malfunctioning. It is faithfully reflecting the inner environment it has been living in. The second layer is the shadow. Jung's concept, the simplest definition being shadow is everything that went underground because it was not permitted to exist above ground. When we hear the word shadow, we always think of something dark. It's not. Sometimes it is the ambition that was pathologized, the grief that had never space to land before because somebody always needed someone or something more, or something always needed doing. The anger that was called weakness in a woman, or the softness that was called weakness in a man. Shadow is what could not be expressed, and what could not be expressed did not disappear. It moved. It found another address, maybe in the thyroid, in the joints, in the blood sugar, or in the skin that keeps breaking open. The shadow work in this method is not dramatic archaeology. It is patient, structured inquiry into what went underground and what the body has been trying to say through the symptoms it produces. Now, the third layer is the Bach Flower Remedies. I know this is the layer some of you will hesitate at. I'm not going to oversell it. I'm going to describe precisely what it is and what it does. So, Dr. Edward Bach mapped 38 emotional states, not diseases, states. Some of them are impatience, inability to say no, the exhaustion of caring too much, the vague, unnamed fear, what we now call anxiety. the anticipatory dread that has no clear object, the guilt that runs as background noise, the internalized criticism that has become the voice of the self. Now, for each of these states, Dr. Bach identified a flower preparation that, in his observation, supported the shift out of that pattern. So, 38 preparations, each precise, each pointing to a specific emotional pattern with a specific biological downstream. I use them after the pattern has been identified as a calibration tool, not a first line. They are the bridge between the emotional insight and the biological response. In the few years of practice, they are the most consistent tool I have for shifting patterns that insight alone has not been able to move. So, pattern, shadow, remedy. 3 layers, none of them sufficient alone, but together they reach what nothing else has reached. Now, I want you to leave with the one question I ask every person who comes to work with me. Not to answer right now, just sit with it. In the year your condition first appeared, or the year it became significantly worse, what else was happening in your life? Not the clinical explanation, not what your doctor attributed it to. What was happening in the life around it? The relationships, the roles, the things you were carrying, the things you could not put down, and the things you are not allowed to say. Just notice what comes up. You do not need to do anything with it yet. The noticing is already the beginning. Thank you for being here. I will continue these episodes, and I genuinely thank you for still looking. That part of you that has not given up is right.